Purview Data Map. Today, I will have a live demo where I will start all the configuration from scratch. We will see the most common configuration to reach on-premise SQL servers, how we can connect through Azure SQL, Azure Blob Storage, using private endpoint or public configuration. With me is Darren today. He will help me to review your questions, comment on the chat. Feel free to share any feedback, comment. I share some information on the chat. Please take a time at the end of this webinar to complete the survey. That will help me a lot to do more sessions like this one. Okay, let's go. We have only 2 hours and a lot of things to do. Here is the link, and you can find my YouTube channel. And the big deal is today we will focus completely in this live demo. Let me start immediately going to here. And what happened? Okay. To start using Microsoft Purview Data Map, if you go to purview.microsoft.com, that is the new portal related to data governance. The first thing that happened is maybe we will not see data map, and that is expected that data map is not shown. It's not shown because you need to enable a Microsoft Purview account. Purview Data Map need an Azure subscription. That is very important. And in this moment, as I mentioned, I will start completely from scratch. The first thing that we need to do is looking for Microsoft Purview account. We need to create a Microsoft Purview account. Nothing more is required to create this account. But having this account, Purview Data Map will be enabled in your tenant, in your Microsoft 365 tenant. Let me see. I believe that I need to change something here. Let's use review and create. Okay. We have our account for Microsoft Purview account. Let's wait. This is a very quick. Doesn't take too many time. And after this account is created, we will see that Purview Data Map will be available through the Microsoft Purview portal. Let's wait for a moment. Remember, what we will try to cover today is this diagram that I share with on LinkedIn and in other places. We will focus first here in our domain, in our corporate network to reach the SQL on-premise. And then we will see the rest of component that we need to reach a storage blob on public access or private endpoint, and the same for Azure SQL databases. Okay, this is almost done. Meanwhile, this one finished. I share on the chat, and I will share again all the links. But I just released a page, a GitHub page that contain all the steps that we will review today. Here, in this GitHub page, you will find all the information, all that we need to go and accomplish our configuration. It's all detailed here. I hope this portal helped to you to go forward in your Microsoft Purview data governance trip. Let's see if we have something here. Here you can see that now data map is available. Previously, data map was not available. After we enable the account, it's still showing as a deployment, but after we finish, we can see that we have data map available. And with data map, we can start working in our configuration. The first thing that we will see, is a domain. Okay, is ready. The domain is a first group that we can set by default is the same account created on this Microsoft Purview account. But if your organization is wide and maybe you have different operations in different countries, or you share the tenant with other organizations, you can start creating other domains to separate the data. After we have the domain, we will create a collection. The collection permits us to start grouping in a more granular way the different data that we have. In this case, I will create one for on-premises. And I will set my account as an admin. I have my first collection. Nevertheless, you can create sub-collections. Okay, I have on-premise. I want to reach my SQL on-premise, but I have a data center in South America. I have another data center on Europe. I can create a sub-collection for that. By default, my account as an admin is added automatically. And here, again, we can create a new sub-collection. Okay, I write data center 02. And you can see that right now I have my domain for all my organization, or I can split in different domain for different organization or for different regions or countries. I don't want to data center. Okay, save. And now I will create my collection for Azure. And as we was talking at the beginning, I will create one for Azure SQL, and another for Azure Blob Storage. Now I have all the components that I want to reach. Here, if we go to data sources, we will see a map. Here, we can start viewing all the components for our environment. I have my domain, two big collections for on-premise and Azure, and then sub-collections to split the data for data center one, data center two, regions, country. You can define that. And in case of Azure, I will split between Azure SQL, Azure Blob Storage. The big deal here is with Microsoft Purview Data Map, we can reach several other services. On this case, I will focus on Azure Blob Storage, Azure SQL, and SQL On-prem. Nevertheless, you can see that we have Oracle, SAP, Postgres, and Amazon over here. The invitation is start deep dive on this. I hope to start sharing more details in the GitHub page. This one, and here let me make a comment. Today we will see how to start from scratch, connecting all. After this session, I will set another session soon, I hope during October, to start showing data catalog, data rule set, how we can start playing with the data. Today, we will have enough time to start scanning our information and getting all of that. But then we need to see how we can play with that information, how we can manage all the data sources, all the catalog, all the assets that will be discovered through Purview Data Map. In that order of idea, on the chat, I share some links. There is a link to subscribe to a distribution list if you want to be aware about new webinars. Okay, let's go. Let's go. The first thing that we need to do, we need to reach our SQL on-prem. We will focus here. And what we need to reach that, the first thing is we need this cloud integration. This is the Microsoft Integration Runtime, Microsoft Purview Integration Runtime. And here I will go to this dedicated server for that. I download it first. And let's install this one. When we register a database as an on-prem SQL database, we will need to use here integration runtime. I will set a new integration runtime, self-hosted. Cloud. You can set any name, cloud integrator, and we will create this one. At the moment that we create this one, here we will find the link to find the Microsoft Purview Integration Runtime and a key. You need to copy this key. This is very long. And now on the server where we are installing the Microsoft Purview Integration Runtime, we will need to use that key. Okay, this is taking time. Okay, now let's go next. Related to the Microsoft Purview Integration Runtime, you can create a cluster if you need for high availability, or if you need to scan several SQL on-premise. There is a way that we can install several nodes with the same configuration, and the load for all of this, the scanning load, will be split in the different servers that are running the Microsoft integration runtime. The other component that we need, and let me show you here, we are viewing on-premise connection. We need to work with the Azure Key Vault. Meanwhile, we are working with the Microsoft Purview integration runtime. And then we will need to set the SQL permissions and the Purview connection. Let's go with the Azure Key Vault. Because this is installing yet. We will look for a Key Vault service. I will create a new Key Vault. Lot of this live demo. Let's use and review and create. The key vault is used to store your SQL password. In this case, we can use a SQL authentication or Windows authentication. In both cases, no matter if we use Windows authentication or SQL authentication, here on the key vault, we will store only the password for the SQL authentication account or the Windows authentication account. But to add this password, the first thing that we need to do is set some permissions. The first permission that I will set is to me. I will add to me as a key vault administrator. If you don't add that permissions, what we will see, that is a common error that take me sometimes at the beginning to start understanding that. But if you try to start adding secret, we will see this message. We will not be able to add keys if we don't have the key vault administrator role. In this case, I'm selecting here key vault administrator role. I will select myself. And the other permissions that we will need, and we will do that immediately, is to the live demo Microsoft Purview account. To request the data from here, we need to set this permission, key vault secret user. Key vault secret user. We can see now that I am able to look for live demo and appear with this specific icon that is related to Purview Data Map. I will select the account, review and assign, and now I added the right permissions to the Microsoft Purview account to request the keys. And now the banner, the policy tips say that I don't have the permissions, disappear. Let me see what happened with the runtime. We need to copy this key, and let's go back here. It's still running. Okay. Let's go back in that case to key vault. I know the password that I will use on my case for Windows authentication. I will say here Windows authentication. This is very important. I was discussing the same week with another customer related to this point. You can use SQL authentication, but in that case, you need to add that account in all your SQL on-premise server. With Windows authentication can be more quick because the only thing that you need to do is reuse that account, and in a central way, you can extend that configuration to all your SQL servers. Okay, we have a question here on the chat. Unfortunately, the only way to start doing a live demo, you can request a free Azure subscription that is for 12 months, and reducing the scope, maybe that amount of credits can be enough to create this lab. I did that at the beginning. The other thing is, if you have a Visual Studio subscription, if you have a Visual Studio subscription, you have some credit that you can use monthly. That can be very helpful as well to create this one. By the way, okay, I'm saying that with pre-written with data, you will see that in the same GitHub page, I am sharing some sample data. I am sharing some links. And if you want to learn how you can configure the Azure Storage account or the SQL Server with sample data, here you can find some additional information that can help to you to go forward on this configuration. Okay, I have my key vault with the password that I will use for Windows authentication. And what we need to do, and that is in the documentation as well, or here, the key vault is ready. We give the permissions to my account as administrator to add the secret key. I added the secret key for that Windows authentication, that is the password. Then I give the key vault user permission to the live demo Microsoft Purview account to give the permissions. We are in parallel in this process to install the Microsoft Purview integration runtime that is running. And now we will set the SQL permissions. Again, all of that is here. And let me go to the SQL. Here I have the SQL. Let me connect. And here in logins, you can create a new login as a Windows authentication or SQL authentication. I added previously an account. Here's the account. And here we can see that I don't have any additional server role. The only thing that I have is for this sample database that is called Adventure Works. I give the database data reader permission. That is the less privilege that we need to scan. There is another capability that is called lineage. In a second session, I will explain about that one. In that case, we will need database owner to read the store procedures and several other detailed things. But for the moment, to start scanning, to start from scratch with Microsoft Purview Data Map, database data reader, and for Azure SQL, that will be the same. That is the permission. We have that permission. The only thing that is pending is our integration runtime. Let me go to there. Okay, finally it's finished. And remember, here, let me close. Starting for search for data map. Data map will appear only when the Microsoft Purview account on Azure will be created. You can create only one account for Microsoft Purview Data Map. In this case, this is enabled. And now here under source management, integration runtimes, I create this one, but I need to finish the configuration. To finish the configuration, I start installing the Microsoft Purview integration runtime on the computer, on the server. I will copy this key, and this is the same key that is required here. I added the key, and now this will start registering the server. Here we can see the name of this server that is called Cloud Integrator. This is the name that I put on Cloud-Integrator. And we can finish. This will start doing some additional effort. And the final result is we will see here the status. For the moment, it's still registering. We will back later to this one. Okay. Meanwhile, this happens. Okay, is ready. We will have the launch configuration. This is common. I was viewing several times that disappear, inclusive no matter that you install the last one. This is not the last one. Yesterday or 2 days ago, appear a new one. Here there is other configuration when all the data that go from this Microsoft Purview integration runtime to Microsoft Purview Data Map is going through HTTPS. It's using SSL to encrypt the data. Nevertheless, if you want to set more servers in your configuration, you can enable this SSL certificate, at least a basic one to try to encrypt the data, or you can use another SSL certificate to protect the data that is running internally. That is the only big deal. And the last thing that I need right now is from my SQL, I need the fully qualified domain name, the FQDN. This is the on-prem server that I will use, that one. Let's go. Data sources. We can use here the register button, or I will immediately on my data center tier 1. The first thing is identify the right connection. Take care because here appear Azure SQL database, but here at the bottom we have SQL Server. And right now, through the integration runtime, I will be able to reach this server. I am using all by default. My SQL on-prem is running the port by default, all the configuration by default. But if you make any change on your configuration, you can add the port and you can make some changes. But in this case, I need only the server endpoint. Now, we will set an scan activity. Scan modern work SQL. I will select the cloud integration. Okay, it's not available yet. I will need to refresh. Give me one moment, please. Let's go here, integration runtime, refresh. Okay, it's still loading, but that is enough to finish our configuration. Let's go here. Okay, scan, modern work, SQL. I will use that one. This is a very big deal. In the case of Azure SQL, we need to select the specific databases, but at least for SQL Server on-prem, we have the possibility to maintain this one empty, in blank, and if it's in blank, we will find all the possible combinations. Credentials, I need to, that is pending from our keyboard, on-prem keyboard. This is SQL authentication. The user, remember, modern work laptop. That is my Active Directory account in my corporate network.
Sebastian, there are a couple of questions in the chat. I don't know if you can go and look at them. They're asking about some SQL authentication, whether you have to set up SQL or...
What all on-premise SQL?
Yeah.
No, you can set a common credential for all your SQL servers. For that reason, I was saying that normally can be better use Windows authentication instead of SQL authentication. Because in the case of SQL authentication, you need to create account in all your SQL servers. With Windows authentication, that can be more quick. I don't know if that answered correctly, but please feel free to start viewing the web page, the GitHub web page, where I put several information. Nevertheless, I will try to go forward, and I will back to some questions. Thanks for that, Darren. Okay, here I have the live demo, and I need a name. And now I will use this one for SQL authentication, the username. That is the username that I need to add. But here, I will select my keyboard connection. And here is the big deal. This secret name is this one. In this name, I set the password for that account. That is the secret name. Create. And now let's see. I am scanning. I can use a general name. I am using the integration runtime. If I left this one empty, I will reach all the database where I have database data reader at least. I will use this credential on-prem keyboard, and this answered the question about that. When I start adding the different node, the different server, I will set this credential. And let's test connection. If it's all is running well, we will see that the connect, okay, that is a big deal. Failed to access the SQL Server database. Maybe in this case is the password. Let me see if I use the right path, the right password. But that we can easily fix this one. I will do something live SQL authentication. I will call this one. It's the same exercise, but in the other case, I need to go to the domain controllers and change the password. That is a little more complex. Okay. I have my password. That is the live demo account. This is SQL authentication. I will give permissions to the same database data reader. That is the new one. Our server, we are okay. Let's go back here to the configuration. We can manage all the credentials, all the identities here. This is the first one that I create, but I can create another one. SQL authentication. The other one was this is a SQL authentication. The username, live demo account. Let me validate that what's the one that I create here. Yeah, live demo account. And I will use the same. I use the same password that I store here. Remember that in that case, we have only a password, and we can use that password at any moment. Now, back to the data source, is pending the scan. I will default that by default, cloud integration, credential, I will use SQL authentication, and let's test connection now and see the result. Okay, now it's working. It appeared that in the Windows authentication, I put my password bad, and I need to change the password. But now we can see that the connection was successful. We can see all the tables, and now we will use the default scan rule set. Here, we will see that start appearing several new things. Scan rule set, data catalog, several concepts that I will try to cover in another session during October. In this one, as I mentioned at the beginning, I will cover only how we can start from scratch, adding the different services, because to start discussing about a scan rule set, we need to start discussing about the metadata model and several other things that will take a lot of time. Okay, we will use the default one. And here we can set every how many times we will scan this one. I can say, okay, I want to run this one monthly, once a month, and on the first day of each month. Or I can select weekdays, or I can say, okay, I want to run this one weekly on Sunday. I can set the time or set by default. And finally, we have the options to save and run or save. I will save and run immediately to start getting the data. I believe that we have a question or comment from Sergio. Sergio, if you can share on the chat, please. Okay, now we can see this one is pending to start running. Normally it take a few minutes to start running and getting the data. How is the connectivity? As I mentioned previously in this diagram, we installed the Microsoft Purview integration runtime. This one generates a kind of bridge between Purview Data Map and your data on-prem. All the integration, all the communication is SSL between the Microsoft Purview integration runtime and the Microsoft Purview data map. Internally, by default is without SSL, but I was showing that in the integration runtime, you have the options to configure the SSL. That is, okay, related to the database. That is the one that I was explaining here. If we need to protect how the data is moved internally, we can enable here the SSL configuration. If not, all the in this case, the communication between the database and the Microsoft Purview integration runtime is running in plain text. That is a big deal. Okay, let's see, it's in progress. Okay, we are ready. Finally, this part is ready. We are scanning our SQL on-prem. The only thing, let me make a quick brief about this one. Through the Key Vault, we save the password that is needed to connect here. To the Microsoft Purview account, we are giving the permissions to read that key, and in another configuration, we are adding the user that used that key. That key can be for SQL authentication or Windows authentication. My recommendation in general is Windows authentication because that permits to more easily scale with several SQL servers. And now we configure the data source and the scan, and the service is running the scan for the SQL database that is located on-prem. Let's go with the rest of components. We also continue with the storage. The storage account is the storage blob. Is very simple to configure. Let's see for a storage account. Here I have my storage account. I have two configurations. We will work with the first one. The big deal, and for that reason, I will take a little more time to explain that. No matter, for almost all the Azure services, you have two options to reach the services. That is under security, and in networking, you have the options to reach this one from public access, or you can disable all the public access and you can reach the data only through private endpoints. Normally, in some organizations are using VPNs, site-to-site or express route that permit to reach the services directly without go to internet. In this case, I will show the two different configurations that you need. For this first one, I will go to this. This is the public one. And what we need to set is the only thing, and this is very important, if you read all the information about Purview Data Map, you will see that there is some managed identities, service principals, several things, and the documentation is very annoying sometimes. But only a few months ago, this is very recently, to Purview Data Map was added the Azure Airbag, Role-Based Access Control. In that case, it's more simple because the only thing that we need to do is, and that is the configuration that I will reach, is I will give the storage blob data reader, again, only to the Microsoft Purview account. The big deal with the Microsoft Purview data account, that was an account created that doesn't have a password because it was created for the service only. That means no one else can connect to this account to use or try to replace the connection. That permit to easily give this kind of permissions to the Microsoft Purview account to reach the different services. Okay, on my storage data map, here I have some containers. How you can create this one, how you can use it. In the same GitHub page, I have one page that explains how you can add files and do several things, and how you can create the storage account and the blob container. But the only thing here is the permissions. Okay, let's go. Data sources, Azure Blob Storage, register. Azure Blob Storage, continue. I will use the same name here to identify. That can be very helpful. This one start adding generic names, but if you need to know very clear what are you reaching, in that case, try to use the data source name to identify. The storage account name is this one, storage data map. This information is added, the domain, and the collection. All by default. The storage blob was added, and now we need to scan. Okay, let's go. Scan the storage data map. We will use the default integration runtime. We will use the default integration runtime. And because we are using this one, Microsoft Purview MSI, this is the Microsoft Purview account, we will set all by default and test connection. Okay, successful. We can identify which kind of data. We can scope the data and reduce if that is required. We will use the default rule set. We can set every how many times we want to run this one. I want to run this daily. Save and run. That is all. Now, related to the private endpoint, let's see the details. And meanwhile, that one is sharing. Let me share again all these links and information on the chat. Okay, is loading. Okay, here is. We can see that is queued. We need to wait a little more time. Let's see what is happening with the other data sources. Here we can see on SQL. And SQL was complete. And here we have how many discovered asset and classified asset that we have. Again, there is several things that we need to go deep dive. My idea is during October, do another public webinar to start discussing about discovered asset, scan rule set, and the rest of things. Right now, in this how to start from scratch, we are doing that. We are viewing what we need to start reaching the different services. Okay, for this another account, storage private network, I call it that because on security, we can see that the connection is disabled and we will use private endpoint. But no matter in which way we reach the service, we need to assign the same role, Azure Blob Data Reader, to the Microsoft Purview account. Let's go here, storage blob data reader. Next, select members, live, demo. Here we have review and assign. And now here we need to go to manage private endpoint. I'm in the Purview portal, Microsoft Purview, purview.microsoft.com. Under Data Map, I'm going to manage private endpoint. To reach all the services that are running on private endpoint, we need to set a managed virtual network. We can use any name. We can use the default one, or we can set another name. And I will create this one. Let's, meanwhile, this one is complete the delivery. I will go to data source. Now I will register a new one, Azure Blob Storage, continue. This one, I will use the name to identify easily. This is a very important tip. Take care with the names. If you use the default names and you have several services, at the end, you will not be able to understand what are you looking for. Storage private network, here is, all by default. And now we need to send the scan. Let me see what is happening here. Manage private endpoint. Okay, that is provisioning. It's still provisioning. We will need a moment yet to add the data source. But normally this is the one. Here is the big deal. Here is the big deal. Now we need to change to the private endpoint managed virtual network. Because it's not ready yet, I am not able to select. We will need to wait a moment. Let's continue. I will back to the private endpoint because that required some additional steps. We saw that it's still working on that. I will work with Azure SQL. Let's see the documentation. By the way, about the data map private endpoint is here on the documentation. You can view there. Now, related to SQL database, we need to have our SQL server and databases. And the big deal here is assign permissions. This configuration is per database. We have two options for lineage, store procedures, and several things. We need to give the DB owner. But for this specific case that we want to scan only, we will use the database data reader permission. And here you can start viewing all the steps. Okay, let's give that permission. Azure SQL. Here is the same. I have my server. I have this one, SQL Data Map. You can see that here on the networking, I added only my account, but is the public access is enabled, and I need to use this configuration. Exceptions, I need to enable this one for allow Azure services. This is very important to reach the SQL servers if you are using public access. To reach through Microsoft Purview Data Map, and if you're using public access, you need to enable this one. On the case of the other one, the other SQL database, we can see that the networking is disabled, and we will see how to configure the private access. Let's go. In this one, the database that I have is this one that is called SQL Public. I need to go to the query editor. You can use this one. This is very similar to the Microsoft SQL Management Studio, to say something. It's a little more simple, but this one permits to connect and run different queries. If you're connecting through a private endpoint using a point-to-point, site-to-site connection or VPNs, you can use the Microsoft SQL Management Studio to connect. But in this case, okay, it's saying that I am not available. Let me review the connection. If you have problems, I am start adding here some troubleshooting, and you will see that same common errors that appear and how you can resolve. Let me add my, okay. And now it's successful, public data map, query editor. Now I can connect. And what we need to do is, let me back to the documentation. Here, add permissions to SQL. We need to use this query, database data reader. But I need to replace this one with my Purview account. Which one is my Purview account? If I go to the Azure portal and I look for Microsoft Purview account, this is my account, live demo. I will replace here live demo. And now I will execute all of this, run. You can see that the query was success. Okay, we are ready to go. Let's go back to data sources. SQL, Azure SQL. Here we can find Azure SQL databases. We go to continue. We will create, this is the one that they want to reach. Take care with the names. Server SQL data map, that is the one. I will go to register. And now we will go to scan. Scan SQL public. The other one is still not showing. I need to refresh. We will use, this is the database, SQL public. We will use the Microsoft Purview MSI. We are using the Microsoft Purview account. We will turn off the line extraction, lineage extraction. You can set different scan levels. You can set by default, or if you want to get more or less detail, you can change the scan level. I will use test connection, successful, and I will continue. Here I can see all the tables inside of my database. I can remove some of them or select all of them. We will use the default configuration. And now I want to check this one weekly on Saturday. I can continue, save and run. Okay, in this case, SQL On-prem was resolved. Azure SQL database for public access was resolved. Azure Blob Storage for public access was resolved. we need to finish the private endpoint configuration. Let's go here. Okay, now is working. Live demo. Okay, let's see if this one start working. Data sources. Let's go back here to the scan. No, that was not created yet. Let me see if I will refresh here. And I will see what's happened with that specific one. Okay, once, yeah, that about sensitivity labels. About sensitivity labels, someone is asking about sensitivity labels. Here, when you go, I will do a pause meanwhile all of this is refreshing. When you go to the Microsoft Purview portal, purview.microsoft.com, if you are still using the old portal, the compliance portal, please start moving to this one because the other one will be removed at the end of this year. The best thing is start working right now with this one. But normally, if you want to use sensitivity labels with Microsoft Purview, you will see normally, if that is not enabled, a big button here at the top that say that you need to enable turning on the schematized data asset. Please turn it on. That turning on only enable the integration, for a Microsoft Purview Data Map. After that, you need to create labels and set labels for that service for Purview Data Map. The idea is reach that one in the next session, in the next public webinar. But here is something very important to know. Sensitivity labels today for Microsoft Purview Data Map only works to classify, not to add protection. The sensitivity labels that are integrated and creating from here and joining and merge with Microsoft Purview Data Map can be only used to classify the data. You can inclusive classify columns, but it's only for that, classify, not for protection. We can discuss in the next session that point, because as I mentioned, there is several concept here. There is several steps that we need to do. The session today is related how we can start from scratch with this one, how we can connect all of this at the beginning. Okay, someone was asking policies in preview. For that same reason, several things was released inclusive in the past week. New capabilities was released for data catalog. For that same reason, my idea is in October start showing all that new stuff related to lineage, data rule set, configurations, policies, sensitivity labels, and all that components. Okay, let's go back to data sources. And let's see if finally here on the source management, my managed private endpoint is ready. Not yet. Let me try to let's say this one. Integration cloud private. Okay, that's okay. Create. Let's see. Yeah, I know. Freddy is sharing. But that approval is when we set the connection. We are not setting the connection yet. We will see that the provisioning state appear here, and then we will need to request the approval state. That is pending. The big deal is the managed virtual network. Now, okay, was taking time, but now it's doing something. Let's see now. Okay, let's go to data sources. Let's go here. Okay, private endpoint. Now is appearing. That is the previous one that I create. And I will get that specific point that Freddy mentioned, because that is a very important point that we need to do. Scan, storage private network. I will use the Microsoft Purview account credentials to access. Auto detect, again, you can select the scan level. And if I use test connection, I will have a problem. This can happen. If you want to avoid this, to avoid this error, I wanted to show we can continue and do several things. But normally, what we can do, because I will receive an error here. Here in the manage private endpoint, after you have your managed virtual network, you can create the connections to the endpoint. In this case, I will reach the Azure Blob Storage through the private endpoint. This is Azure Blob. This one is Azure Storage account. This one, Storage Private Network. That is the virtual network that I will use. And what's happened? Now we can see this one is provisioning. We need to wait until this one finished to provisioning. I will start doing the same immediately with the SQL to win some time. Azure SQL database, continue, the same thing. Let me looking for the SQL. Give me one moment. Azure SQL. I want to reach this one. This one, but I want to change the name here. Create. What's happening? Here, this is already, it's pending now. That is the comment that Freddy made on the chat. What happened? I need coming to my Azure Blob Storage, well, the storage account, and here under security on networking, I will see that I have here on private endpoint a request, this one that is pending. I need to select, here we can see that the private endpoint is the Microsoft Purview account and the name that I added to the endpoint. I need to select this one and approve. Now, doing this step, now the connection between Microsoft Purview Data Map to the Azure Storage account through the private endpoint is ready. In that case, I can come in here, we can refresh, we will see that now is approved, and now I can come in here and finally run my scan. Okay, I will run the scan. I will use this private endpoint. And now if I test the connection, I will see that I have successful connection and I can continue. Now I can go through the same steps that I did previously for the storage account. Continue. I want to check this one weekly on Sunday, and save and run. Someone is asking about the scanning performance. Because Azure, the Purview Data Map is an Azure service, in the Microsoft Purview account on the Azure service, you can make some changes to increase the performance or reduce the performance. All of that have a cost related. That permit to grow the scanning performance or reduce. Now, we can see what is happening. Let's see what's happened with this one, the SQL on-prem. Okay, this is complete. Now I need to go to the other one, data sources, SQL public. This is our Azure SQL. You can see that we discover certain information. Now, let's see with this one. This is public connection. Completed, and we can see that we have different assets and information, and some of those assets was classified. Data sources. Let's see what's happened with the private network. Okay, this is in progress. We need to wait a little more. Now, the last step that is pending here, the last step that is pending here is the SQL in private. Okay, for this step, only right now to add the account, because I don't have a connection point to point, I will enable this one. I will add my IP address. I am doing this step. I will back immediately to disable to show that this one works in disable. But this is only because I need to connect to the query editor, and I cannot connect because I don't have a VPN. I will see that I have a problem to connect. But that is the only point here. I will back to disable that show all of this work in private endpoint. Okay, someone. Okay, what we need, why we need, and what is the need, and in real life use case. I don't have clear the question, but if I try to assume what's mean the question, Microsoft Purview Data Map permits us to identify all the sensitive information types that reside in all our databases. That, in general, or any other service that is on the cloud, that permit to have a complete idea if maybe in some databases, some financial information is stored, or some PII information is stored, or anything. There is not all the same sensitive information types that are available for DLP, or sensitive information types or sensitivity labels are available, are more than 200 right now available. But with that, let me clear here. That is enough to start having that specific information, know which kind of data we are storing, because in a long, wide organization, someone is getting information from different sources and storing, and we need to know which kind of data is stored in the databases on the blob storage or anything like that. Let me see if I can connect right now. I need to get the query. This is the query. Okay, continue. We say that on my case, the account is called live demo. Remember that in any moment, you can back to Azure portal, look for Microsoft Purview account, and this is the Microsoft Purview account that we need to give the permissions. Here I am give permissions to live demo. Live demo. This is for the other SQL, the one that have the private endpoint. Okay, I am ready with this one. I will go back to here. I will go back to here, and I will disable. This is to show that only works with a private endpoint. Save. And let's go. We need to connect. To connect, we will go to here, manage private endpoint. It's more quick. Previously, I was creating this connection. Remember, I add a new, I select the Azure SQL database, and then I complete the rest of info. After that, the connection was trying to create, but is in pending state. What I need to do is come in here on networking, go to private access, and here we can see that the live demo, this is the one that I create, is pending. I need to go here, approve. This is annoying because you need to copy all this same request message here and press yes. And now this is approved. We will come in here, back, refresh, and is approved. That means that I can come in here to data sources. I will register the SQL database that is running on in a private endpoint. I will use this one, SQL private. SQL private. This one. Okay, register. And let's go to the scan. Scan SQL private. We will use the private endpoint. Here we can see that the database is here. We will use the Microsoft Purview account to connect. And now we can test the connection. We give the permissions previously. The connection is success. We can press continue. We will see all the tables. And here again is the same steps. What's happened? I will go to the previous databases and configurations. In all these ones, we can see the scans. And if you need, you can run the scan again. And you can set if you want to run an incremental scan or a full scan. This is very important. Incremental scan or full scan. It's not required to scan all the information all the time. Someone was asking about the performance. The first time that we run the Microsoft Purview Data Map will take a lot of time for all our databases, for all our blob storage. But after that, we will be able to run incremental refresh, incremental scan to avoid to start getting all the data again. And let's see. This one was pending. Let's see the progress. Okay, it's still in progress. We can see here. And I can assume that the SQL on private endpoint, I will edit here the name. Okay, I cannot edit the name. I will need to create that again, but let's see the details. And this one is in progress as well. Okay, that is in general how we can start Microsoft Purview Data Map from scratch. That is the main focus for this session. Please, I am sharing some links and information in the chat. Please help me to completing the survey. That is very important, the feedback from your side. This is how we can start. No problem if you need to go, and let me back to here. Now we need that we can start SQL on-premise. For SQL on-premise, we need to use the Microsoft Purview integration runtime. We can add more than one server for that Microsoft Purview integration runtime to if we have several servers and we need high availability, we can use a second or a third node. For this case, I use only one. The communication between the Microsoft Purview integration runtime and the Microsoft Purview data map is encrypted using SSL, but by default, the internal communication doesn't have protection. You can enable an internal SSL certificate to encrypt the data that is getting in this line. That is the first point. The other point that is important here is we can use Windows authentication or SQL authentication, and the password is stored in the key vault. In the key vault, we need to set two different permissions: key vault administrator for the user that will store the password, and here only we will store the passwords for the different accounts, and the key vault user secret that is used by the key vault by the Microsoft Purview account to access to that specific password. We are using the key vault only for this. If you review all the public information, you will see several different configurations related to manage identities, service principal, and different ways to configure Microsoft Purview Data Map. I was reading and reviewing all of that, and I believe the way that I'm sharing with you today is the most easy way to configure. You can see that in less than 90 minutes, we was able to connect different sources on the cloud, on-prem, with private endpoint to our Microsoft Purview Data Map, and Microsoft Purview Data Map is working and getting all that data. Now, related to services on the cloud, this is a kind of resume. The most easy way to avoid these managed identities, the service principal, and several other configurations that you can find for Microsoft Purview Data Map is use the Azure Role-Based Access Control. In that case, what we are doing is giving to the Microsoft Purview account that was created to enable Microsoft Purview Data Map the reader permissions for our SQL servers and our Azure Blob Storage. This can be extended for Oracle, SAP, Amazon Web Services. There is several, but this can be the most easy way. At the beginning, we was talking about that we can set domains. Normally, if you have one tenant and you have only one organization, one domain can be enough. But happen that because here we are scanning and discovering different data assets, you can split by region, by country, by several other options. That can be if you need to separate that result, use domain is the best way. Then after the domain, we can have collection and sub-collections that permit to easily identify the data that you are collecting from on-prem, from a specific service for a specific Azure subscription. You can start splitting in the best way that permit to you filtering the data that is captured. Then on the data source, after added the data source, we saw the scan. The scan can be set to run every hour, every day, weekly, monthly, in different days, in different times. All of that can be configured to start collecting your information. That is all that I am covering today about Purview Data Map and how to start from scratch. As I mentioned, today I release it. I just share again the link, GitHub page where you can find all the steps related to configure this. This session is recorded and I will upload later on my YouTube channel. Any other question or comment that you can have today? Yeah, the record that will be available on my YouTube channel. I will share in a while. You can find I was sharing several times the link on the chat. You can find and you can see in that place. Nevertheless, in the same GitHub page, I will add the link as well. Sergio, you are asking about sensitivity labels. Doesn't protect. That is the big deal. Sensitivity labels today only works for classification, not for protection. That means at least with the sensitivity labels as is, we cannot protect the data. There is other options that can be implemented to protect or avoid download the data and take some actions over the data, but a big misunderstanding. I know that the product group is working to improve that one, but today sensitivity labels can be only used for classify the data. Someone is asking for the SQL. Yeah, the Microsoft Purview integration runtime needs to have connectivity to the Microsoft Purview data map. Nevertheless, this is very helpful, and thanks for that question. Here, this is the self-hosted. Under Node, we can see all the services URLs. In that case, for that Microsoft Purview integration runtime, you need to at least enable these URLs. We can find different URLs. You need to see the ones that are related to your service, but you can get all of these one to give only permissions to these URLs, to that service, to reach from your Microsoft Purview data map to your SQL on-prem. Let me try a look at some. No, I have one question that from Jane at the top. Does Purview allow customer to take any action after classifying the data? I know that some new stuff are releasing, but my idea is start discussing what we can do related to the data catalog, the data protection, and all of that in the next public session to discuss about all of that. We can scan the data versus the seed. You can scan the databases and identify the sensitive information types, and inclusive, there is a way that you can add other kind of sensitive information types. You can add other regular expressions, because what's happened, you can use Purview Data Map without having information protection. In that order of idea, you can use Purview Data Map without having a Microsoft 365 tenant, are separate services. And you can, as I mentioned previously, have another price, the Microsoft Purview Data Map, and because can work separate from Microsoft 365, you have the capability to add other sensitive information types directly on this same service. We have another, what is the action that customers typically takes post-completion? With data catalog, we will be able to see how our data is living in our cloud services, how the data is grow and reduced. But then related to the actions, maybe you can identify that in some SQL servers are sensitive information types that doesn't need to be there, and you need to take internal actions to know why that information is there and not in the right place. Related to actions, the big deal is have the complete view about where the data is and which kind of data that you have in the different services. Do we need to create separate sensitivity labels or use the same? My recommendation is create separate labels. Unfortunately, on my experience, sensitivity labels have 3 different scope, and the 3 different scope are different. And normally, when the customer trying to use the same sensitivity labels for document, for groups, and then for data assets, is a big deal because generate a lot of misunderstanding from the end users. Normally, I recommend to have separate sensitivity labels per scope, one for element items, another for groups and site, and the other one for data asset. What about DLP on sensitivity data discover? We will see what we can do with some new policies that are appearing on Purview, what we can do with the data catalog to see all that information. You can classify, and after they classify the data, you can take some actions. That is something. My idea is generate that need to connect to the next session, and those kind of point I will reach in the next public webinar. Related to the databases and the different components, I don't manage on my mind all the different components, but that is easy to find. The public information is very rich in that point about all the data sources and all the capabilities related to each data source. I will try to share that link later. In the same GitHub page, I have a support information with several links. I will share that specific, but here you can see that we have the data, and we can see for each component what we can scan, what we can classify, what we can labeling, policies, lineage, data sharing, and live view. This is the big deal that we will need to discuss soon in the next public webinar. Right now, yeah, that image that Sergio is sharing and on the chat is a preview. Today, I know that there is several questions, several things that you want to know, and I hope to set that next webinar for October soon, and I hope to have to you in that session. Right now, I will give the word to Carla from my team to tell to you some